name's Hope Brewer. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy afternoon to join me today. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. I've got Caroline Newcomb joining us, so if you do have any questions throughout this webinar, feel free to ask them in chat and she'll answer, but I'll also leave some time at the end for a Q&A. Also, with us going into being in level 3, I hope you've all transitioned well. Hopefully for those of you who have already joined Wushka, you'll get a lot of information today, and for those of you who haven't joined, hopefully you'll want to join us in the future. All right, so I'm going to change my slide over. So I've just said that I'm recording this session today, so if you do want a copy of this webinar, feel free to email support@wushka.com.au and just say your name, where you're from and what session you attended. So it's the New Zealand webinar, and they'll send through a copy as well as a copy of the chat. I just ask that you keep your audio turned to off and your videos off as well, just for the quality purposes of this video. And if you do have any further questions, once we've finished this webinar, just feel free to email those through to support or to myself, and I've left my email there for you to jot down. So for those of you who haven't joined Wushka, the process is you would go onto our net store and go to Wushka and fill out the form. Once you've filled out the form, it will go through to our Wushka team and they'll quickly send a response back and ask for you to fill out a piece of paper, an online piece of paper with all of the documents for your details. They also would like a copy of all of the student details and teacher details. Once those have been uploaded, they'll be sent through and one of the reps will upload it all for you and then contact you to ask if you'd like to have a one-on-one session. That will be 45 minutes to an hour, and then we'll continuously check in with you. And it is free until the end of June. So you can have a trial, no strings attached. If you like it, that's awesome. If you don't, that's fine. But it really is a fantastic tool as an extension of your reading program. I'm going to share my screen now with you. So once you've got those login details, you'll go to wushka.co.nz. Make sure you do go to the NZ website, not AU, as your login details won't work. You'll enter in your username and password. If you're the coordinator, you'll see 2 different dashboards. Today I'm going to be showing you through the teacher dashboard. Now, because we upload all of the information for you, when you do go into Manage Class List, it will all be there. Today we're going to look at Manage Class List, Manage Reading Groups, Student Login, and Helpful Resources. I'm going to start off as well by showing you our reading boxes. We've got 15 different reading boxes, levels magenta 1 right through to black 31++. Once this loads, I'll show you. So you scroll down and you've got all of your reading levels there. It's great because it is leveled reading. To expand the book box, you just click the plus and it will display all of the books within that level. The reason I'm taking you here first is because when you're doing your planning, we've got this filter button. When you click on the filter button, you're able to filter with different options. So if you're wanting to continue your inquiry project for the term, you can click on theme, find the inquiry topic that you are focusing on, such as space, and then click filter. And it will pop out all of the results for each level that have the topic space. To reset, you just click the reset button and you can go back in. Some of our other filters that we have are fiction and non-fiction. Later on when I show you the statistics, you'll be able to see if students sway towards one or the other and you'll be able to plan appropriately for that child. We also have comprehension strategies. So if you have a particular learning intention for the week, you'll be able to come here and choose one of those. You can even do this as a big book and display it on an interactive whiteboard when we do go back into the classroom or in a Zoom meeting or any interactive platform that you are using, and go through and practice this strategy. And these are all of the books for that particular strategy. So that's the filter. I'm going to show you two different books. Now I'm going to show you a lower level book and then a higher level book. So when you do click on the book, it will open up and give you a brief description. You've got some details such as phonics and content words. It will provide a follow-up activity that students can do after they've finished reading the book. On the left-hand side, you've got the reading level, whether it's fiction or non-fiction, the theme and topic, strategy and skills that are being learnt. But more importantly, with the lower levels, you've got your high frequency words down the bottom. So if you're planning to do a high frequency word for the day or week, you can align the book appropriately to match that learning intention. We also have our support materials. These are all printable. We've got a follow-up activity, lesson plan, which is fantastic because you can have this open or print it out if you're in class and use these prompts to help you with your guided reading groups. If you are doing a remote guided reading group and using a platform such as Zoom to meet with your students, you could have this open as well as the book in question, such as The Fish, and flick between the two. And I can show you how to do that a little bit later on at the end of the session. We've got our printable readers. So for those students that are in class, if you're not wanting to share resources, you can print these out so that they can keep them and there's no sharing of any books. We've also got printable wordless readers. So if you're wanting them to practice strategies such as sequencing, beginning, middle, and end, they can write this on the printable wordless reader. And there's some word card options as well. These support materials can be turned into a digitalized worksheet. To do that, there is a program called Shobi and it's free. And again, I can show you at the end of the session, if you'd like me to, how to make this from being printable to digital. So that means instead of students printing it out, they'll be able to work straight onto the worksheet and send it back to you instead of printing it out, filling it out, scanning it, and then sending it back. So it's a great tool. If you decide that you like this book for your planning, you'll see here you've got the bookmark icon. When you click that, it will go straight into your bookmarks. But even better, when you are planning your books for your reading groups, it will show up, and I'll show you that once we pop into reading groups a little bit later. I'm going to open a book now. To do that, you just click on the white play button and it will load. The book that I'm going to show you now is exactly the same as what the students will see when they open it up. There is the option of narration. Up the top right hand corner here, you'll see you have the yellow play button. You can turn this on or off individually for students or the whole class. It's completely up to you how you want to manage your class and your students' learning and their particular Wushka program. It is great for oral language and you can monitor if they are just purely listening to narration or if they've got a mix. To turn the pages, you just click on the the green arrow to the side and they'll be able to read through. So if you're doing a guided reading session remotely, you'll be able to instruct your students, say, Benny, could you please read page 4? Obviously, you won't be able to see any video as you'll have your Wushka page open, but you'll be able to hear one another. So it's fantastic for those meaningful conversations. I'm going to flick through to the end of the book. When you do finish the book, or when the students finish the book, you'll need to instruct them not to click the back button, but to always click the blue X, as that will record how long the book has been open for, and you'll be able to know if they're just quickly flicking through or if they're actually reading their story. It will also ask them if they'd like to complete a comprehension quiz at the end. This is also able to be set up for students individually or the whole class, and I'll show you how to do that a little bit later on. But for the purpose of demonstration, I'm going to just quickly go through. So you'll be provided with 5 questions at the end of each story. They're based on inferential, literal, and evaluative questions. At the end of the questionnaire, students will be given their answer. If they're unhappy, that's not the be-all, end-all. They can go back and reread, which we encourage because we want students to reread for comprehension. That is the purpose of reading. I'm going to go back to my dashboard now. Go into reading boxes. And I'm going to show you a high-leveled reader. Going to open this one up. It's the same as before. You've got your description, your detail, your follow-up activity, the information down the left-hand side. But the reason I wanted to show you this is because of the discussion cards. These are particularly important for those higher levels. It starts off with an individual activity, a pairing activity, followed by a teaming up activity, which is great for oral language, working together. And then there's always a writing activity. So these could be your follow-up activities for the week or for a couple of days, however long you want to focus on this one particular book for. All right, I'm going back to my dashboard now, and we're going to go into Manage Class List. As I said earlier, we will set up all of your students. So when you come on, you'll see all of your students' names. They'll have their username. This cannot be changed. So I suggest when you do send home the username and password details for each student, that you tell them to save Wushka as one of their favorites, just for ease of logging on. If they're on their own device, they can also save their username and password, again, just for ease of logging on. For those younger students, or if you're sharing devices in class, you can sign on to your teacher logon, then go to student login, and it will display all of your students. So they'll be able to click on their own name just to make it easier for them, and they don't have to type in their username individually. You've got your password. You can change this individually by clicking on the blue dotted line, but I imagine you would want to have the same password for everyone. So you just click on the grey Manage Class button, and I'll refer to this often throughout this Manage Class List section. You go to Set Class Password and just type in whatever password you would like, such as Room 1, Wushka, 123, whatever you think your students would find easy, and it will change for the whole class. The next two columns link to independent reading. So this isn't their guided reading level, it's one below. Easy reading, take-home readings. They can refer to this if they're wanting just to do some reading for fun. So obviously if student A is reading at blue, I'm going to set it to yellow, one below. Always make sure that you click the white tick in the red box and continue to do this for all of your students. Once their reading level is set, then you're going to their level access. You've got a range of different options here, and depending on how you want to run your program, you can set it differently. I'll talk about the different programs you can run, but for now, I'm just going to show you the most basic. So you'd always make this reading level and one below. So that means that they would have yellow and red books to read independently. And remembering always to click the white tick in the red box. Do that for all of your students. The next two columns relate to guided reading. So this is their instructional reading level. Use the same reading group names that you have in class, just for ease of planning. To do this, first you'd go up to Manage Class List and click Create Reading Group. You'd add in the name of whatever the reading group was, such as fish, and click Create Group. I've obviously already got it in there, so it's not going to work. But once you have done that, it would just automatically add. You'd repeat those steps until you had added in all of your groups. And then to put a child into a group, you click on the blue dotted line, select the down bar, and all of your groups will be there. So I'm going to put them into Wales. You'll do this for each of your students. Now, reading group permissions. If you are going to be continuing remote learning and you're wanting to do a guided reading online session with one of your groups, this would be set to off 5 minutes prior to the session starting. So at 9:55, if they're going to be doing their session at 10, you would log on and turn this to on. The reason being is we want to keep that text unseen text. They'll still have access to their independent reading level, so yellow and red, but they won't have access to their Wales reading box until you turn that permission on. So that's where your reading group permissions needs to be set. You can manage this as a whole class by going to Set Class Permissions and turning it on or off. School and home relates to when you'd go back to normal school hours. So if you wanted them to have permission to their guided reading box between school hours, that's the hours of 8 to 4. Home is everything outside of that. Allow narration. So I showed you earlier that the books can have narration. As I said, you'll be able to see later on if a student is listening to narration, say 85 to 100% of the time, and you might want to turn it off for that particular student. To do that, click on the blue dotted line and just click No, followed by the Save button. If you want to turn it on or off for the whole class, again, manage class list, set class narration, yes to keep it on, no to turn it off. Same with the comprehension quiz at the end. You'll have options. So you can turn it on or off for the whole class by going to manage class list, set class quizzes. So if you're wanting it on for everyone, turn it to compulsory. If you want it to be optional, so it will ask the students, would you like to complete it? They can choose yes or no. Sometimes students, and you know them best, may be unable to have someone guide them through that comprehension quiz. It is not narrated, there is no voiceover. It needs to be someone sitting next to them, physically reading those questions to them if they're unable to, and then reading out the answers so that they can select the appropriate one that they think that it is. The reason being is we've taken this digital reading program and we've blended in traditional reading, and it's meant to be a guided session with support. So that's where, if they don't have that at home, you'd just select not required. And if you were able to do a session with them and ask those questions, you'd set it to compulsory, and you can change those options, turn those functions on and off however you please. Again, you've got your school only and your home only. So if you're wanting to have that quiz pop up between the school hours of 8 and 4, set it to school only. Home only would be everything outside of that. If you have a new student pop up through the mid-year, you can easily add them just by filling in this side panel and add them up. If you've got a whole new class starting, say in term 3, new entrants, and you're wanting to sign them up, that would be a job for your program coordinator. So you would have to request for them to do that. You'll see up the top here, I've got different rooms. The reason being is I'm the coordinator. I can see every single room. If you're just a teacher of a particular room, you'll only see your room. So that's why you'll be able to see that I've got different rooms up there. I'm going to go back to my dashboard now. I can access manage reading groups through going back to my dashboard, or along the bottom here, you'll see you've got all your different options. So I've got reading groups there as well. I'm going to go to manage reading groups. Now that we've created our guided reading groups, we'll be able to plan for them. So I'm going to select Wales, and I've got student A who I just put in there. And I said that they were independent reading yellow, but their guided level was blue. So I'm just going to click on blue and it will pop up with all of the books. To add a book, I just click on the plus and it will add. If I want to have a quick snapshot because I'm not sure what that book is about, I haven't gone through and bookmarked, I'll just click on the magnifying glass and it will give me a brief overview of what this book is about and some high frequency words, etc. I can go through and add as many books as I like, and if I decide, oh, I've made a mistake, just click the X. If at the end of the week you're planning for weekly or fortnightly reading, you can click the archive folder and it will remove that book, but it will tell you that that group's had it before. See how you've got the archive folder with the plus? So you know, okay, I don't need to assign that one again. It doesn't mean you can't give it to those students again. You just click the folder and it will pop back over. A faster way to do it is clicking on the tool icon and then clicking archive all books, and you can submit that and it's removed them. Just makes for ease of planning at the end of the week when you're wanting to set a new group box for that group. I'm going to go now into my dashboard. And I'll take you into helpful resources. So on the left, we've got resources for schools. On the right, we've got resources to send home. This is to keep the pathway between school and home strong. We've got some information for the coordinator, the teacher, the reading level correlation chart, which is all the ready to read levels. We've also got support materials. This may be of interest if you're wanting to continue doing assessments such as running records on your students. You can do it remotely. I have done it with a student remotely and it did work. If you want more information, I'll leave time at the end of how I did this. But if you use this document, you'll be able to see what books you can use for a running record, either in class or remotely. We've also got our tips for parents. So when you do generate your student letters, you'll be able to send home with the student user login details. And it will just give a brief explanation about what Wushka is and why you're using it. To generate those student details, you go to My Dashboard, Manage Class List, Manage Class, and then Generate Student Letters. The reason I'm showing you this now is because you want to make sure you have set up Manage Class List, the table, and your reading groups. If you generate these student logon details and send them before you've set all of this up, they'll have access to 650 plus books at all levels. This is great for those older students if you're just wanting to use Wushka as extra reading or a library for them. But for those lower level readers, it would be a bit overwhelming to see 650 different books. So to generate those letters, you just click the student letters and it will open up a PDF document. Before sending this off, because it is including every single child's login details, I recommend using a snipping tool just to crop the details and then send it to each individual student. So to do this on Windows, you just go down to the Windows icon on the left-hand corner, which is your start button, start typing Snipping Tool, and it will automatically open up this tool, and you just follow the instructions to crop it. If you're on a Mac, just click Shift Command 4, and you'll be able to drag that across and crop it the same. Make sure you include wushka.co.nz so they know to go to that website instead of the AU one. I'm going to show you now the class statistics and what this means. So obviously you'll use your OTJ to make a judgment of where your students are, but Wushka will provide you with a little bit of information that they've gathered from your students' reading. So they'll have their name, the overall readers completed, how long they had their book open for, the average readers per week, and their average quiz results. So if you look at Hector, he's only got his book open for 25 seconds and his comprehension's quite low. So I might want to look further. So I'll go to Student Statistics. Once it loads, you'll be able to see down the left-hand side your different students. So I'll find Hector and click on him. And I'll scroll down. So they've got new versus reread. This is how many new books you've allocated versus how many times they've reread them. Obviously, we encourage rereading for comprehension. Read versus unread. This is just a percentage of books that they've read that have been allocated to them. Fiction versus non-fiction. This is where I said you'd be able to see whether a student was favouring one or the other. We obviously want students to have exposure to a range of different text. And narration versus no narration. So this is where I said you'd see if a student was having narration on 85 to 100% of the time, and you might switch it off for that individual student. If you scroll down and click on the grey See All Quiz Results, it will provide you with some more information. So remember, Hector was only having his book open for 25 seconds and his comprehension was quite low. If you look here, his reading time is 10:38 p.m. We don't encourage devices late at night, so it might be a conversation that you'd then have with the parents about when to open up Wushka, when to read, because we wouldn't want them feeling tired and, you know, after a long day having to go in and complete a comprehension quiz in a book. It will have the comprehension results there, but if you're wanting to see a bit more information, you can click View and you'll be able to see the question. So you'll might be able to see a trend amongst the student or the class where they might be getting inferential questions wrong. So that's when you might go into your filter button and focus on inferential questions that they can bring that strategy and learn it better. I'm also going to show you the student login now, so you can see what students will see when they log in. I'm going to go to Faye. Hopefully I've allocated some books for you to see. Just going to wait for that to load. So once it loads, it's automatically logged out of my account and it's now in hers. So I've got here her independent reading book boxes, and I know that because it doesn't say reading group here, it just says the reading level. So she can see all of those. Again, I said when you open up the book, it's just the same as what you see, but without the support materials and just slightly less information. They've got some other books they can read if they enjoyed that one. They can favorite a book by clicking favorites, and it will save into their favorites folder for them to access easily next time. For the older levels, if they're doing an inquiry project and they want to refer to a particular book again, they might like to favorite it. When I open up the book, it's exactly the same as what you see. There's no distractions of little noises, you know, when you turn the pages or avatars. It's just purely reading for comprehension. If you scroll down to my page, they'll be able to see the same overview that you see when you log on, just slightly less. But obviously we want them to be in charge of their own learning and know where they're working towards. Again, they've got their See All quiz results and it will give a snapshot. So nothing's a secret. As I said, we want them to be in charge of their own learning. And again, the favorites box. They can easily remove these books just by clicking remove. I'm going to show you, I'm going to log out of Faye and log in. As I talked earlier about how when you're flicking through permissions, you'll be able to make them have access just before they log on for the guided reading session for you. So I'm going to find Faye. Oh, actually I'll do student A. And their permissions on. So if I go on to them, as Faye, her permission wasn't on. So I'm going to put her, sorry, I'm going to go into student A just so you can see what it looks like when they log on and they're actually physically in a group. So you can see their reading group Wales, and I've selected no books, that's why the carousel's empty. But if I turned that permission to off, then they wouldn't be able to see anything. I'm going to show you some other ways now quickly of how to set up Wushka. Just these are added extras. So that was just the basic. If you only want it for independent reading, then you'd only set up the reading level and level access. You can just set those up on the table and they'll be good to go. If you want it for guided reading, set up reading group and reading group permissions and they'll again be good to go. If you want both independent and guided, then set up all four. If you're wanting to create a more structured independent reading program, you can do that. So you would have seen when I clicked on my down bar under reading group, I had Wales independent, Dolphins independent. So I might be wanting those students in that group to have particular books to support an inquiry project. So instead of just having access to everything below yellow, I want them to be having access to the particular books that I want set to support their inquiry project. So once I've put them into that reading group, I can then go to reading groups and go to Dolphins Independent and then select the books that I want for them to have. So if I were wanting them to have space books, I can then go up to reading boxes and once it loads, I'd click on the filter button and select space. I can then go through and bookmark the books that I want them to have by opening it and selecting bookmark. As this is her independent reading, I'm only going to select levels below her guided reading level. So then I'd go back into reading groups. When I click on magenta, you'll be able to see up in space has a bookmark. So then I know I can add that in. If you wanted to create topical libraries, you could add students together who aren't at a particular reading level. And for example, I would filter space, but I wouldn't go to the reading level set to them. I'd go all levels. That way they'd be able to kickstart their research project by going into that book box and finding the information that they needed. You could also create reading clubs. So if you wanted to get students together, maybe they lack a love of reading or they love reading, you'd be able to either choose books that are linked to their interests and merge those students together, and then they'd be able to read books, and you could encourage them to do activities together afterwards or to have discussions later on. You can also create reading recovery groups. So if you've got ESOL students or students who are in reading recovery, you can add those teachers in. They can plan for them just the same. If you do have students that are in two different groups, for example, Dolphins and Dolphins Independent, they can't be in two places at one time. So you need to keep the permissions on and you'd just flick between the two. So for example, I wanted them in Dolphins Independent because they're needing to complete their space inquiry project today, but at 3 o'clock they're going to jump on and have a guided reading session with me. Then I'll just make sure to flip them into that guided reading group. When it's done, I'll just put them back into their Dolphins Independent group and they'll be good to go. And it's the same with your reading recovery teachers. They can create and plan for a group, but then you just have to make sure that you didn't plan to see the same group at the same time. And that is Wushka. I hope you've learned a lot. If you have already signed up, I hope I've inspired some of you that haven't signed up. I'm going to finish off with a quote that I've seen on Facebook. You might have seen it. It's a Dr. Seuss one, but I think it fits how we're all going at the moment with teaching. But it says, "I'll teach you in my room. I'll teach you now on Zoom. I'll teach you in my house. I will teach you with my mouse. I will teach you here or there. I will teach because I care." And I think that's definitely teachers in general. We are just able to adapt to any situation, and you're all doing an amazing job. And I really hope that you'll find that Wushka will make life easier, and the fact that you can just make this an extension of your current reading program because you can link it to all of the levels that your students are. So I'm going to open up my chat now. If you do have any questions, feel free to put them up. Now I'm going to read them out loud and answer them. So can you filter by high frequency word? No, you cannot filter by high frequency word. Carolee, feel free to jump in on that. I don't think that you can. Yeah, I can see there. She's already said. Oh, but there's a document coming out to everyone that lists against each title. So if you do decide to sign up, as soon as we get that document, we can send that out to you as soon as possible. Did anyone want to see how you change a document from being printable to, oh, how long did it take to set your groups up? Not long. So once you've got, once you log on, you'll have all of your students and everything set up. Then you just have to go through and set them one below. So if I were going through, I'd just have my guided reading groups next to me, so they're instructional levels. And then I'd just look, okay, student B's at purple, I'm going to set to turquoise. Jill, she's at blue, I'm going to set it to yellow. Go through, complete those. Level access, you'd set it to reading level 1 below. I'd suggest even creating a fictitious student. Add them, have a play to see what level access you want, because here you do have different options. So if you only want Wushka for guided reading, select reading group only, and when they log on, they'll only have access to the reading group guided reading books that you've set for them. Reading level only, if you only want it for independent reading, set it to that. Reading level, so that's their independent, and one above would be their independent and guided reading level. So I wouldn't suggest doing that one unless you wanted them to sort of have free reign of that guided reading text, but obviously it's preferred unseen. Reading level and 1 below is my recommended, and you've got other options there as well. But it doesn't take long, you just quickly flick through, so you just make it the same, 1 below, 1 below. Then go through, add all your groups through Manage Class, same thing, click, add them to their groups, and then you just start planning. Once this is set, that's it. You'd only change it if a student moved up or down or you had a new student come in. All right, back into chat. So Shobi, yes, it is an editing tool. So if I type in Shobi, let me know at any point if you can't see my screen. So I've got Shobi here. So you can all see my screen, I'm assuming so. So I've already gone on and signed on and set up. I set up as a teacher. Your students would have to set up as a student. So once you are set up, it's really quick and easy and it's free. You would have created your classroom. So mine says MTA demo, but yours would be room 1, room 2. And you go in, and then you'd create down the side here all of your different topics that you're focusing on, such as math, reading. So Shobi doesn't just have to be for Wushka. You can go into your resource room now, get a paper document, scan it, and then upload it into Shobi and make it digitalized. Yeah, it can be for anything, but I'll just show you how I did it with Wushka. So obviously I said I did a remote running record. So I wanted to make the running record sheet digitalized so that I could fill it out while the student in question was going through reading their book. So I've got shared items. You'll get a code. So once your students have signed up, you'll be able to send them the code and they'll have access to the documents, either everyone or individually. It's up to you. It's really customizable. But then I've gone in and uploaded the document, and I'll show you how to upload, but you can make it larger by clicking on the magnifying glass. You've got your toolbar up the top here. So I'm just going to double check that you can all see. So you've got your pen. You've got 2 pen options with all your colors and your thicknesses, your eraser. This is a cool part here. So you can add in little comments just by clicking and then clicking again and say, like, make sure to add your name. That's fantastic for the older students. You just click save and they'll be able to see, oh, Mrs. Brewer said, make sure you add your name. But you can record your voice. So if you're wanting to explain, maybe I only want you to complete this activity, numbers 1 through to 3, and you're going to do the rest tomorrow, then you'll be able to record that message and they just click play. I can't do it now because I'm in a Zoom meeting with you, but yeah, that's how it works. I thought that was a really awesome feature. And then you've got your text box. So obviously writing with a pen through using your mouse or your keypad is quite difficult. So you just click the text box, click the screen, start typing. It takes a little bit, as you can see, time to come through. So I found that side, it was a little bit slower, but otherwise it's an amazing tool. So you can make it as neat and tidy as you want. You can create these digital documents. So if you're wanting students to type, you just click the text box and add that to the section where they'll be writing. And then they'll be able to just go straight in and type. Or do it themselves. So when I did my running record, how I did it is I added the student's name and then I just created a key just by using the pen. And so, for example, I made mistakes orange, and then I made self-corrections red. When the student read, I didn't bother ticking. Obviously that was hard, but the cool part was because I was in a Zoom meeting, I could record them reading to me. So if they read too fast, I had the recording so I could actually listen to it after and go through and complete this. And then I could just save it to my planning if you aren't able to go into school at the moment. But obviously you can just print these out as well. This was just an option whilst we were in lockdown. So for example, if they were reading and they made a mistake, I'd just click orange. But if they went back and reread from the beginning, I'd go back and then say they self-corrected, add it up, added in their retelling. And yeah, it was just an amazing tool. So I'd highly recommend go on Showbie and try it out, because I'm sure you'll fall in love. Everyone that I've shown so far is like, wow, it's so amazing. And that's how I've turned our printable documents into digital. And then obviously you can just go through and save. And I'll just quickly show you the plus here. So once you've downloaded anything or scanned through anything and saved it, you just click the plus and go add from computer, and it automatically opens up your documents, and you just choose what one, and it will pop up here on the screen. Yeah, it's really quick and easy. Just going through. Can we modify the rate of reading when the children pick narration as an option? I think Kiraleigh's explained that one, but were you meaning, can you make it the narration speed up for the students? So at the moment it's set for the lower levels, it will be quite broken, and it will highlight a word at a time, and as they move up the levels, it will highlight a sentence, and it will start to sound more like talking, and then in the higher levels it will highlight a paragraph, and it will read like talking. So it just depends on the level of where the students are. I would play it for you, but again, because we're in a Zoom meeting, the audio is not fantastic. So yeah, if you create that fictitious student, set up and have a play with all of the different functions, turn them on or off to get your perfect program that you would like, whether it's just independent reading, just guided reading, both. You want project groups, you want reading clubs, it's completely up to you. Do that, and then open up the books and have a listen to the narration and decide if you want to have that on or off. But if you go away from this and you think, oh my goodness, I can't remember, yeah, email through support@wushka.com.au, and we'll be able to send this copy through to you to refer to or send on to your staff. As well as, if you do sign up, you'll have your school rep, and we're always here for you. So yeah, these webinars that are being created are not a replacement of that. Always just yell out to your school rep, and they'll be happy to help you in any way to make sure that you're setting up. We can even do one-on-ones with you if need be. Because yeah, I've been doing that with some of my schools just to help them get the perfect program. But it's free until the end of June, which is amazing. Are there any more questions? No? Oh, thank you so much everyone for joining me. I really hope that you've got a lot out of this. The email is support@wushka.com.au. Oh, would help if I was typing. Send that through now, support@wushka.com.au. Otherwise, you can email me. Soon we'll be having some video tutorials coming out, and it will break up each of these steps. So there'll be just a tutorial on manage class list and that table. Then there'll be a tutorial on just reading groups and setting that up. And then there's also going to be another tutorial for your parents that you'll be able to share with them so that they understand how to use Wushka at home with their children. So I've just finished creating those, so they should hopefully be up in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be able to share those out with you. Again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy afternoon to join me. I really hope that you got a lot out of it. It's great to have so many of you here, and if you are in the Auckland region, I'll be hopefully coming and visiting you soon once everything's back to normal, which it will be. But enjoy the rest of your evening. And feel free to leave now. But yeah, make sure if you want a copy of this, just email either of those emails and you'll get a copy, as well as the chat with the questions to refer to. All right, see you later, everyone.